Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning. It's Tuesday. I know I'm getting a late start this week, but I actually did a lot of computer work yesterday starting on the Weefiant. This is the new Defiant kit from Round 2, and I will tell you, it's probably one of those rare instances where the kit is, or the kit is actually larger on the box than it is when you've built the kit. The picture on the cover is actually bigger than the actual model. This is a tiny model. This is a tiny kit. Now, everybody who's built the Defiant before is used to the huge, cavernous, big Defiant. This is not that kit, obviously. This is kind of small, kind of dinky. It comes with a wonderful set of decals, and if you want to use those, you know, God bless, go ahead. I don't care for the colors on some of those decals, plus, you know, in general nature, I'll use decals for windows and markings, but if I could paint the plating on a kit, that is my first choice. So what I'm doing is I'm making template sets for the painting of some of these plates. It's basically a 3-color scheme. There's like, and they're all in the blue-gray family. There is a like a medium, a dark, and a very light, a light to medium, a dark, we'll say that. And then there are additional, what I call blue markings, which are those dark blue guys on the wings, and then there's a couple under the belly on the underside that are also that dark blue. I don't really count that as part of the paint scheme, more or less as independent markings. So what I'm doing is making template sets so that you can paint those dark blue colors on, plus the 3 levels of gray. And it's a simple kit. I mean, you're looking at all the parts right here. It's it. Hull's basically 2 parts. Each wing is 2 parts, plus a front and a back, and some, you know, add-on detail parts, but that's it. The nice thing about this kit is, though, with these nice cavernous panel lines, it makes it easy to make these plating templates, because all I do is put the tape down and then trace off the lines, you know, do a rubbing of the lines and then scan that and clean it up, and there you go. So what we're looking at here is, the first thing I look at is the clear parts, and that is the nose piece and the 2 rears of the warp engines. Those have to be masked off. And now here are the fronts. These are the fronts of the engines, and they're kind of strange because basically all of that is well, it's this area right here. It's what you see in red. So I need to mask off yet. That's the last bit of it, is to make masks for just, come on, focus. Yeah, woo, Dr. Tongue's House of 3D. Is to make masks for that indent. Those straight lines across, I don't know, because they are so tiny, whether I'll be able to mask those. I'm praying that Paul, when he makes his photo etch, will include etch for those. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I need to make masks for those 2 bits, and then we will be ready to go. And we're going to kind of have to build and wire and do that as we go along, because the way this kit is set up, you have to you kind of have to build the, you know, the engines in place. They've only got the 1 seam on it on the outside edge, but you kind of have to build those in place and seam them in place. So it's going to be tough to try to put the inserts in and then get the wiring in behind them. So we'll see how all that goes. But once I get the clear parts masked, I'll be ready to put a primer coat on everything. Alrighty, you can see that I have got the primer coat on the 2 main hull sections and the smaller bits over here. Now, before I do the clear, before I put the primer on the clear, I made sure to mask the parts I wanted to stay clear on the outside and on the inside. What that's going to allow me to do is prime the inside for light blocking and prime the outside for light blocking, and I don't have to do it all on the outside, which would mean glopping on a lot of paint. So having the sharing the load by putting the primer on the inside as well, I think will go a long way. And then if that still doesn't work, what I can do is go with a heavier paint on the inside, and maybe even some tulip or something, because that's real thick paint and I can just smear it all over. As a matter of fact, I might even do that first before I well, no, I'll put the primer on, because then the tulip will stick to it better. So go ahead and prime these bits. I need to stick them down to a board. Excuse me, to a board. I need to stick them down to a board so I can do that. And what I normally do is take a little piece of double stick tape and stick it down, and that's how I attached these pieces, so that they wouldn't get blown off by the pressure of the spray can. Here you can see where I have already pre-cut a hole for the lighting to go through for the tiny orange SM LEDs that I'm going to use behind the front of the warp engines. But what you see here is a little bit of the, I wonder if I can reuse this, or whether it's still got some stickiness going on to it. So let me start with the backs. And what I do is I just put them down on the actually, yeah, wait a minute, that is the backs. Yeah, okay, so it needs to go that way, and stick them down on the double stick gel tape, and then that then I can go ahead and spray them without worrying about holding them with anything. Righty, I've got some color laid down. I got the darkest blue, which is basically a medium blue, and what I'm going to do is make a mix of a color. Well, let's finish this first. I got the medium blue here, and of course it's oversprayed, but because of the wonderfully etched panel lines here, I know exactly where it's going to go, so I can confine my overspray. So I've got the blue down, and then I also took time to do the brown, since it doesn't really touch anything else. I did the brown, and then I did this wee bit of warm gray here. So none of these touch none of them touch each other. So I can go ahead and spray those, let those dry, and then I'll put masks down over them and go to the next color, which will be a medium in between these two. I'll mix up some medium blue and some light blue, so I'll get a light. A media light, a medium blue, and then the lightest of the three colors will be this light blue, and then after that will be the gray of the ship itself. But if you can see on the box, if that helps any, what I'm aiming for now is I've just painted this, and then this is the next color, this is the color after that, and then this is the hull color. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, if you can see the trail from light to dark. So yeah, there's that medium, and then this is the lightest here. So medium, lightest hull color, lightest gray blue, medium gray blue, dark gray blue. These two back pieces here, this one and this one, they're nothing but clear, so they need a whole ton of light blocking. If I were to flip on the light and put this down on the table, you would see how much light blocking it needs. So what I'm going to do is take some black tulip and fill it in around here from the back side, and see how much more light blocking we can get out of it that way. Here you can see I've got the miscellaneous areas masked off, and I'm starting on the medium blue, gray, and then I'll mask these off and put the light blue gray on. Then I'll mask those off and put the white gray on. So it's a process, but here you can see it's tough to gauge. You have to really trust yourself, because it's tough to gauge the right tone of blue gray against the primer gray. So you just kind of have to have it in your mind. These are the colors I've mixed up for these different areas, and then go with that. I mean, you can always come back and adjust it, but it's, you know, kind of good to have it right out of the bat. That way you don't end up putting a bunch of different coats of paint on. But that's where we're going to let it dry for tonight. Morning, it's Wednesday, it's the 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. You know, I used to watch the movie Independence Day on every 4th of July. And, you know, it's a fun summer blockbuster. But now I think, you know, it used to be speculative fiction, science fiction. Now, when you watch Washington be destroyed completely, it's just wishful thinking at this point. So, let's get back to the Defiant. What we've got here is, I've got one, this is the first layer of paint. This is the second layer of paint, has been covered up. I've got the masks on the second layer of paint, which is the medium blue-gray. And what I've done is I've sprayed a light blue-gray. You can see more masks up here. I've sprayed a light blue-gray over top of all of the ship. This is the nice thing about this snap kit is I can go ahead and take this apart again after I did, but there are a couple of masks that wrap around. So you kind of had to have those in play. I had to join it together before I could paint that. So at this point, I'm letting this dry, and then there'll be one more layer of masking, which is to keep this light blue-gray color in place. And then the next color really is the hull color, which is more of a whitish gray. You get out of the blues and into more of a gull gray. So what I'm doing this morning, outside of taking pictures and writing instructions and whatnot, is to get this last bit of color down. And then once I do that, I need to yank this thing apart and put some lights in it. And I've got a ton of, well, I've got some tiny SM LEDs, because that's really about all you have room to put in here. Got a couple of oranges for the front of the nacelles. I've got some blues for the back of the nacelles. I've got a blue for the front of the cockpit. Well, I used to call this the cockpit area, because, you know, back when they first introduced this ship, I thought it was a lot smaller than it really was. I mean, they kept calling it a little ship, and they kept calling it, you know, a lean, mean fighting machine, to quote John Candy. But, and I always thought, you know, that sort of like the runabouts that they were using at the time, that the cockpit was down in here. Well, no, the cockpit is, or the bridge is actually up in here, and this ship is a much larger thing than you would think of. It's actually about the size of a saucer of the Enterprise. I didn't think it was that big. Anyway, it's gotten bigger and bigger, and I mean, at the last time it was used, it actually had its own shuttlecraft, which I thought was, you know, really, it's sort of like the third level of the Jupiter 2 was that kind of like really packing stuff into a ship that didn't merit it. Anyway, so I need to crank this thing open after it's dried and start working on putting the lighting in. I'm debating about how well I'm going to light these guys up, because it's kind of a weird thing. You want to light not the top of it, but you want to light the surrounds of the circles, which is kind of strange. And of course it's a clear part, and I can't find it on my towel. But here's the other one. It's that bit right there. And you don't want to light the tops of it up, you want to light the sides of it. So I may mask the very top of it. Well, no, I might paint the very top of it so that it blocks the light at the very top. We'll have to see. Let's see. Is it here? Is it safe? Is it here? Oh, I'm sure it'll show back up. Yesterday I had a massive search for this guy that I had misappropriated, and it constituted a full red alert while I was looking for that clear part. So let's get these guys out of the way and not worry about it. Moving on. Well, I'll tell you what, since my raison d'etre is painting and not lighting, what I'm going to do is finish this up with a paint job, and then take it back apart and get into the guts of it and light it. I'm not really going to take the time to light it now, because that would push back the final paint job, and I don't want to do that. So let's finish painting this, and then since it's a snap together thing, we can pull it back apart and light it after we're done. I know I just repeated myself. I just came back from mowing the yard, and I'm tired and I don't want to do a lot of work today. Okay, this is the, I guess the last set of masks. It is the light blue, or the light blue-gray masking. That's all I'm asking. And you can see the layers of masks underneath it. You can tell by how much yellow you can still see that I didn't put really heavy coats down. But this is the last bit of masking before, and there's some on the bottom there. The next thing to do really is to do the grayish white traditional, you know, it's not not quite a gull gray, but it is a light gray starship color. Yay! And then we'll be done with the paint. Well, except for touch-ups. Okay, the Defiant is decidedly more ship-shaped, or at least ship-colored. And now we're going to let all this dry. I'm going to put this up on a stand. Again, you can still see some of the yellow through there because I wasn't, you know, layering the paint on. Don't worry about this. It all gets covered up with the engine, so, or the cowling, so don't worry about that. I was just trying to add some dimension. So, back up on the stand, this goes to dry, and all of this dries until later this afternoon when I peel off all of these templates. Okay, it's moment of truth time. Given the paint a good while to dry, and now it's time to start removing the masks. I'm really pleased with how these have turned out. Of course, I haven't started on that yet, but look at that. There's the 4 colors. This is a subtle different color from that. It's tough to tell. Maybe I could have mixed that a little bit better. It's more obvious on that one, but this is my favorite piece so far. Look at that. Very nice. Okay, let's do the big body part. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I think that came out marvelously. I've got 2 soft lines. I got a soft line here where the paint kind of got under on both of these, and I think it's because I didn't, well, I know it's because I didn't press these down hard enough right before I painted. So the vinyl lifted up a bit and the paint creeped under there a bit. So let's see how bad that gets when I put the engine pieces on. It's kind of still noticeable. I may want to sharpen that line up with a little bit of paint, but by and large, very happy. Ready to put a satin coat over this to protect all the colors, and then I will be ready to tear this thing apart to do the wiring tomorrow. But those colors are crisp and clean and sharp and all kind of that. There's the demarcation of the 2 different blues, and then the dark blue, the darkest blue, which is right there. Yeah, that goes, does this go this way? No, that goes on there. So it's these guys. But yeah, that looks pretty darn good. And not a decal in sight. Now I am going to recommend you use the decals for obviously the striping and the names and the numbers. There's a circle decal that goes there that is part of this. I recommend cutting that out and putting it down. And let's see what else. That's pretty much it. These guys, I'm going to recommend using the decal along with the stripe there, just so you don't have to break that up. But everything else, stripes and numbers aside, this is done and ready to be torn apart and put some lighting in. Come back. It is Thursday, day after Independence Day. Bunch of yahoos up all night in the neighborhood shooting off things, even though it was raining outside. I was kind of hoping Darwin would take care of them, but they lived to procreate another day. Anyway, it's going to be wiring day after the stunning success of painting yesterday. I couldn't be happier with this. Put a coat of satin over everything to kind of protect it whilst I'm doing the manhandling of all the wiring. And then, let's see, wiring, put it together, gloss put the remaining decals on, and then a flat coat over that. So we're getting down to it pretty quickly, although I expect to spend a good chunk of today handling the wiring. Here is the issue. This is such a wee ship. It's just such a tiny ship. I can't, with my limited abilities, I have to put that little caveat on there. With my limited abilities, I can't bury a power source and all the switches and all that kind of stuff inside this kit. I need to run them out the stand, and I can put a switch here. This dome is big enough that I can hide a 9-volt battery underneath it, no biggie. However, we got one thing in the way, and that is this post. This post is solid. Look at it. Look at it. Solid. I need to get a piece of metal or plastic that is a tube and not a rod. So I need to run out to the hobby shop, see if I can find something comparable. I looked through my Greebly box, and I don't have anything of this diameter. So I'm going to take this piece with me so that I know it will fit, and bring that to me, and then I can cut a hole here so that it will sit on top of the post, and run my wiring out. This also, because of the way the kit goes together, is going to be a little bit precarious in the way we wire it, because really, I can wire the head. I keep calling this the head. I can put that clear piece in there, put a blue LED behind it, and I've already started to channel out a little cut right there so that I can run the wiring. And something like this. Let's see. There's the piece. Here's the blue SM LED. Tape that in there, or glue it down. Put the clear piece in the front of it. Bob's your uncle. We've got lighting, and I can take that all the way to the back and clip it in here. Where it gets tricky is I cannot put. Well, see, here's the thing. These pieces here, these are where the engine shine the light out. I can't really do that because I have to put the top down. If I put the top down before I can put this in, then in order to worry about that little curve there, that means I have to put the top down before I can put that in there. Well, if I do all that, I can't run wiring. So long and the short of it is, I'm going to have to bring wiring up through this post, and then just bring dead wire out to here and out to here, so that I can close the ship up, and then do all of my engine lighting. I can't run my engine lights before I close this up. That's the problem. I also need to decide what, if anything, I'm going to do with these guys. These guys. They have a weird kind of a lighting thing where the light actually comes up around it. I have painted that piece with some tulip. We'll see how well that works, but I'm going to have to see if I'm going to put a white LED over each of those. And then we've got red LEDs shooting out the back. We've got an orange LED up the front and blue LEDs out the back. So for as small as this is going to be, it's going to be packed with wiring. So I guess the thing to do is to figure out the wiring harness, so to speak. And but the first thing I need to do is run out and get that post. Okay, I'm waiting for the shops to actually open up. It's still a little early in the day, so I've taken to lighting the things that I can go ahead and wire up. And what I've done is I put a tiny blue SM LED in the front of the head there. And let me see if I can get the wire clip out and do up some lighting. I've also done the red engines to the back there. I'm going to put up a drop of epoxy on that to really solidify it. I just got it on there with some CA right now, and those will go back in here. I'm doing the wire harness, kind of just running the wires where they need to be. I'll join all of that up, and I'm going to fill in some areas here with the black tulip to do the light blocking. and things are progressing. And thanks to the handy dandy battery clip, we can see the light. Now, obviously, there are masks over the 3 openings there, but we're getting a good amount of light. Now we're getting some spill, and I think light blocking might end up being an issue, but with some extra reinforcement from some tulip slick inside there, hopefully that will be enough to block the overage. Okay, the wiring harness is in for the bottom of the Defiant. I've got leads going out to the engines. I've got the warp engines. I got the impulse engines wired up. I've got the light that goes to the deflector wired up. So all I need to do now is take some epoxy and kind of seal all this stuff down and get it secured so that I can put the top on. It's continuing on the front of the nacelles. Oh, the camera makes that LED look real sourcey, but it is not that way in real life. It's more like that. But tiny orange LEDs stuck in from behind, and of course I still have the masking on the front. So the question is going to be, or the challenge is going to be, how to light block where you don't want light, because you have tiny amounts of area of real estate there that you really need to block 100%. So barring any sort of photo etch barrier, which is probably the best barrier for light blocking very thin things, because you're basically trying to shine a light through metal. That's the edges of that clear piece, and that needs to be painted with a heavy paint. I'll probably put a layer of tulip on that and then paint over that. But those are working out nicely, and that's both of them. And I've got the engines, or the impulse engines, light blocked, and those are working. So once this epoxy has had a good chance to set up, I will probably drop some more epoxy in there to level it off, and then light block the back of it, and then these will be ready to install. Tape is covering the wiring that I have pushed down. Yeah, we're at a let the glue cure, let the paint dry type of setting. So let's do that and then come back. Oh, you haven't seen this. I've light blocked around those, around the vents for those guys, and that's got some tulips sitting on the top of them that I can peel off. Right now it's acting as a light mask so that you will see around those, just like that. So that's how it's supposed to work. We've got another major step, another milestone here. Got the front of the Bassard collector lights on. We've got the blue lights underneath the deflector. We've got the impulse engine lights on. And now the last thing to do before I can close this up. See, the lucky thing is, the way this kit's designed, you can put the fronts of the nacelles in before you put the top down, but you cannot put the backs in before you put the top down because of that curve. It has to wrap around both the top and the bottom. So what I need to do in that case is to take the stanchion, or make a stanchion here where the blue light is going to shine, kind of backwards like that, and make it a free-form stanchion, so that when I push the engine, or when I put the I'm trying to describe this. This has to go down on top of it. Then I can put the outer parts down like that. So I have to, wait a minute. I think I feel like Hal here for a second. Wait a minute. Just a moment. I can put the top down, put the back in, and then I can put the top of this down. I don't have to slide this in from the back. So yay, that means I can have the top of the warp engines open before. Oh, okay, this changes most everything. So all I need to do now is put the top down, glue it, get it all secure, and then I can run the oh, okay, yeah, this won't be quite clear until I'm done, but let me get this finished. Hold the phone. I've put my thoughts together, and I am fairly confident that the best way to get the blue engines lit and everything, I've got to sacrifice this pin. If I sacrifice this pin and that post, it will give me all kinds of room. Plus, I will still have 1, 2, 3, and then the long strip. I'll have plenty of gluing surface. I just won't have this last pin back here. So let me knock those pins out, and then I'll making the blue lights a whole lot easier. Okay, I'm working on the back end of the main warp engines, and of course it's a blue light, and I have CA'd it down to a piece of sheet styrene, cut to shape, and I have temporarily removed the masks from the back of the warp engines. I've got more to replace it. I'm not really worried, but I wanted to try this out to see how it works, and I am very happy with that, because by putting the bulb in the center, I hide it between the posts of the two engines so I don't get a sourcey bulb, and life is continually good. So if I put the yeah, it looks a bit sourcey here because the camera does that, but to my beady eyes, that is a wonderful thing. So let's get the other one of these made up, and we'll get ready to install it. And there you go. There's a couple of nice warp engines. Made a little box for them, and I will be able to pop those guys in there. The last thing to do before closing up is deciding about these. How much effort do I want to put into those? So I might have to do up a little bit more boxing. Let me see. Okay, it's the last bit of lighting before I close it up. I made a couple of boxes here. Stick one cool white LED in the middle of the box. I'm going to glue that box to the bottom here, and when you turn it over, you get nice lit up swikels. Very nice, very nice. Done good. Okay, here we go. They are lit up. Yes, it's a little stronger in the center than it is out towards the ends, but that is the nature of the beast, because that's closer to the bulb. But what I'm going to do is close these boxes off, and that'll concentrate the light, one would hope, and bounce it around and make it more even. So with that, we are ready to join this wiring to the wiring in the center, and join these two halves together. Let no one tear them asunder. Okay, every time I add a new circuit or join up two new wires, I have to recheck everything. Power going in, yes, the blue light you can see there. Orange light is working. Warp engines are working. Both Bassard collectors are working. And these are now joined to the circuit. So now I am ready to close the top to the bottom. This is very momentous. I am going to take a few minutes, say a few prayers, offer up a sacrifice if I need to, and do a lot of double checking and make sure I am ready to close this up. And I'm going to look and see if there's anything that I might need to pack down with some either epoxy or some putty or anything to keep it from moving around and to keep it. Now see, these are open because I am going to be adding the boxes for the warp engines backs to those, but I need to close this up. And this thing, because it's a snap tight kit, goes together like a dream. What I'm going to do is put 10X, or I'm sorry, the MEK into all of these guys, and then just mush it together. I'm going to not use any clamps because I've got a nice finished paint coat on the outside. I don't want to mess them up with clamps. I should be able to get 98% of what I need. Also going to run a small bead of the MEK around, particularly in here, but in this perimeter. So say a hosanna and pray for me because I'm getting ready to close it up. Okay, now I have attached the rear lights. That gets everything is inboard. The top and bottom is joined up. Yes, I caved in and put some clamps on it because one thing I didn't count on that you should when you're building this. It's a snap tight kit, and it depends on the friction of the pin and the socket. Well, when you put MEK in it, or 10X or any other glue, what happens is it actually lubricates the socket, and even though it will, it will melt the pin and everything will be solid when it's done, what happens is it lubricates it and it does not allow it to the friction fit. So you have to squeeze it all the way down and clamp it, even though it's, supposedly a friction fit. But you know what I'm talking about. What happens is it lubricates that pin, and until the pin has time to melt, has a chance to melt, it's going to be slippery. So some well-placed clamps, and we're ready to go. Now all I need to do now is move these guys, coil up this wire, move this into here, move that into there, and get the tops put in place, and I will be done for the evening. Okay, get ready to close up the last bits. I'm going to clean this table off before I call it an evening. These are the last two bits to go on. It is this one, and it is this one, and then it is this one. Now there's a couple little detail pieces and some guns and stuff that go on here yet, but this is the closed up of this is going to get tonight. Going to let's see, I've got this one pin left, so I need to lubricate that one. Okay, it's close. Next time you see this, it will be all closed up. There's your works in a drawer right there. One last light check. Yes, I know, I teased you. This is the next time you saw it, and it was not closed up yet. But doing some last light checks. A lot of light blocking to do tomorrow, but so far so good tonight. Okay, it's all closed up. And let me get my rationalization out of the way real nice and early. I said yesterday that I was going to finish painting before I did construction because I wanted to get the templates done and the instructions written, and it's not about lighting anyway. And I stick to that. But what you see here is some seam work that needs to be addressed, and that is because I did that. Now, normally I would have finished construction. If I knew it was only going to take this short amount of time, I probably would have gone back and done it this way. But I can fix those seams up lickety-split. That's not a problem. And in the perfect world, I would have done all of this building before I finished painting anyway. So all I need to do is let this dry tonight. Tomorrow come back, do a little bit of dressing up on those seams with some sanding sticks. And I will be ready to do the finished top coat painting and then on with the decals and everything. So yeah, construction is done. All the lights are in. Everybody's home. But happy Friday. This is the last work day of the week, and I don't know how much I'm going to get done on the Weefiant. I was struggling with the idea of trying to get it done this week. I don't want to rush it. I'm going around doing some final picking and painting, and I've come to the unescapable conclusion that there's no gentle way to mask that, or to take care of the glow of those engines. This clear piece needs to be masked and painted, and I just had to glop in a bunch of tulip around it, and I'll paint it up and make it pretty later, but that's just a massive light leak waiting to happen. And I did something stupid that I should never have done, and hope you won't do it either, is I forgot to frost the back of the inside of that piece before I put it down. So when I peeled off the mask, which did a perfect job, I saw the naked SMLED just sitting there. I didn't. It's not pretty. So I had to paint some orange over top of that to make it to camouflage the bulb, so you didn't see the bulb there. And the light still comes out through the paint. Don't worry about that. It actually gives it a little bit more interest. But if I had frosted the back of that piece of plastic, I think I could have diffused that light a little bit better. But I'm just going in and picking at some seams that are, again, unseemly. But I'm going to sand those down a little bit later. But and I went in and got some detail paint on those guys and some other things. And of course, a lot of the color is going to be added when I put the decals on it. So I'm trying to get this to a point where I can at least put the decals on it today. I may not be able to seal them in, but I want to get this paint a good enough chance to dry so that I may gloss it and put the decals on. We'll see how much of it I get done today. I've got so many other things competing for my time today that I might not get it all completely done, but really like those. I've got to take the masks off the rear of the warp engines, but I've got the areas, the recesses in behind there all painted nice dark gray, and very happy with how it's looking. I just need to go around it and point up some paint and touch up some things. Doing some, like I said, doing some detail painting, but I don't want to step over myself and touch wet paint. Friday, it is Friday mid to late afternoon. I just got back from the movies. Yes, I took some time off to go see Ant-Man, and I highly recommend you do the same. I just got back in from putting a coat of clear, or gloss clear on this so that I can put some decals down today, and now I gotta let that dry for, at least an hour. It's not going to take me forever to put these decals down, but it's going to take a goodly amount of time, so I'm going to work on the base while I do that. I'm basically in the base. I'm just going to put a little switch here and run the wires to a battery. So let's do that insignificant stuff. Yeah, I'm starting on the decals. I've got the patient all glossed up and laying on its back, so I can do the belly decals first. It's going to be easier to do that and then pull it over, plop it in the stand, and do the top than it would be to do it the other way around. So starting on the belly decals first, and I'm going to put the windows in, I think. Okay, I am ready to call this what I'm calling done enough for television. It is raining biblically outside right now, so I cannot put the flat coat on this because I need to step outside and spray it with a flat coat and do all that. So that's not going to happen today. So we are going to call this done enough for television and get this video done, and then next week I'll start off the week by showing the complete thing. But outside of this ugly glossy glare, it's done. And I've got some tiny decals to put on that I have not done yet because it means stepping over top of these other decals, and I wanted them to have a good long drying time before I touch them. So one last little treat. Now I've got I know it sounds like a litany of excuses, and I'm sorry, but I have yet to repaint the frames of those. That's the slick that you're seeing there. I'm going to paint those gray. I've got some weathering and some washes to put in here to bring out some of those details, but I wanted to show you this. Ba-bam! Look at that. Lights up front and lights in the back. Party up, business up front, party in the back. And that's where we're, and on top too. Let's not forget these guys. Sorry, I had to cough. But yeah, it's as good as it's going to get for this week, and I'm going to call it done so that I can start putting this video together. But there you be. And again, beating the dead horse because those are the only ones I can beat. I'll show you the final finished version of this at the beginning of next week, but all intents and purposes, it's done. Fun little kit. Not a lot to the building of it, and actually ample room to light it. So fun little kit. And maybe you can hear the thunder outside. Let me get this video put together. Oh, and that's going to do it for this week, my friends. Another ship, another week, another ship. Maybe I didn't see the back end as well, but look at that charming little thing. You can get a very satisfactory paint job on this. You don't have to depend on the decals. And as problematic as my relationship with Round 2's decals have been, the decals on this were superb. I don't know whether they took my little meager insults to heart or not, but you cannot get any better decals than what they put in here. They were crisp, they were well registered, they're the right size, they're the right colors. I did not use the wallpaper stuff, obviously, but the marking decals, which is all I'm really interested in, were beautiful. So, and the little table light. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I don't know if I'm going to be here next week with the way the storm is coming through. So, until next time when we discover together what the next project will be. It might be, it might be this. Won't that be fun? Until next time, be good to each other. We're all we have, people. Be good to each other, and we will see you here next time.